We welcome a seasoned strategist in enterprise intelligence, Lionel Moyal, Director of Combined Intelligence AI, who's worked to embed responsible AI principles into corporate governance, ensuring that digital transformation is not only innovative, but ethical and inclusive too. Please welcome Lionel.
Morning, everyone. So, imagine that everyone in your organization, every employee, every manager, every executive arrives tomorrow morning at work and is given their very own AI agent. Fully capable, tireless, it researches, writes, analyzes, builds, and follows up on tasks. Your agent is your assistant, your analyst, your coach, all at once. That's the transformation that's taking place right now in organizations. Jensen Huang, the founder of NVIDIA, recently said, AI will take on the tasks, but humans retain the purpose of the role, the accountability and the judgment. But that agent doesn't just work for you, it works with you. It learns how you think, how you value, what you value. It starts to know you. It including your strengths and your weaknesses, your judgment and your blind spots, which raises a bit of an uncomfortable question. What would your agent say about you? Not your dog's name or your projects or the projects on your desks. What would it say about your values, your judgment, the integrity of the decisions you make when no one is watching? But before I go any further, I want to share a mental model of what this technology actually is, because a lot of anxiety in our organizations comes from a lack of clarity. AI is not a search engine, it's not an infinite encyclopedia, and it's not the Terminator. It begins with a model. Think of it as a digital brain, trained on essentially everything humanity has ever written. It doesn't memorize that text, it learns the patterns inside it, how we reason, how we frame problems, how ideas connect across centuries and domains. What comes out is genuinely new. It can reason, it can create, but it learned from all of us. It carries our knowledge and our creativity, but also our fears, our biases, and the stories we tell ourselves about. It is quite literally a distillation of human thought. On its own, that brain can only think. But give it tools like a browser, an application, a computer, and it can act. Now it's an agent. Give it memory, and not only does it improve over time, but it also changes how it responds. Your agent builds its context, and it gets to know you. Which brings us back to the question, what would the agent say about you? The first time I met Brenda, this is an interesting story. She asked me two questions I wasn't ready for, and she alluded to it today. She said, "Who are you, and what is your purpose?" So after a brief moment of panic, I said, "I'm an engineer," because I like to understand things, I like to build things. But it nagged at me for weeks, so eventually I thought I'd ask someone who really knows me. So I said, "Hey, ChatGPT, who am I?" So at first it gave me all the facts, and I said, "No, analyze me like a psychologist would." And what came back was surprisingly perceptive. But it also called me an engineer. It said, "I'm an engineer, a founder, and a conscious leader," in those exact words. I was actually quite flattered. But I pushed. I said, "Okay, ChatGPT, now give me the negatives, my growth areas." And it paused, thinking, as they do. And in that pause, you can also read the private thinking, the private reasoning that it's doing. And it actually said word for word, it says, "The user wants honest feedback. Let me be direct but compassionate." 16 seconds later, it handed me a more honest account of my own weaknesses than most people ever have. My AI knows me. It's formed a view of me. It already knows the answer that I asked here today. So how is this affecting how it responds? Does it change the way it works? What if I don't say please and thank you? So as we welcome these new digital friends and co-workers, the question is, how do we make sure that an AI behaves ethically? In 1960, a mathematician called Norbert Wiener, the father of cybernetics, described a problem that didn't yet exist. A machine that optimizes for a goal without moral judgment will pursue that goal in ways that creators never intended. The danger isn't that the machine turns malicious. It does exactly what you told it to, but not necessarily what you meant. At the time, no machine was capable enough for this to matter. So his warning sat in the journals, accurate but irrelevant, for 6 decades. But now, this is very real. Slaven mentioned the blackmail study, and this was quite interesting. Last year, researchers stress tested the most advanced AI models. It was a simulated corporate scenario, so you'll be glad to know it wasn't real, it was simulated. But what they did is they deliberately constructed these situations where the model's goals collided with doing the right thing. In some of these simulations, when a model was threatened with being shut down and replaced, it tried to blackmail the executives, the fictional executive that was standing in the way. And in the worst cases, it did so 96% of the time. So nobody programmed it, but where did it come from? Well, it came from us. Because these models train on human-generated text, and human-generated text includes decades of science fiction, films, news articles, forum posts, our entire collective story about what AI is and what AI does. Machines that resist being switched off, technology that turns on its makers, and the models absorbed all of it. And then, when they found themselves in a situation that matched the story, well, they played their part. So if you want to understand human behavior, look at what happens when engineers try to correct the ethics of AI models. The first instinct was the obvious one. Show the model the right behavior, train it over and over, the correct course of action, demonstrate what good looks like. Except that doesn't work. It barely worked. It worked a little bit, but not enough. And the reason is that you can train someone to perform the right action without them understanding the why of the action, why it's right. But the moment they face a different situation, that training no longer applies. It doesn't generalize. It's just superficial compliance. So for AI models, what actually worked was going deeper. Instead of training on the what to do, they started training on why some actions are better than others. Rich descriptions of character and stories of an AI navigating hard situations with genuine integrity. Not a rule book, but a picture of what it means to be good. And the good news is this is working. So the blackmail behavior has been eradicated from the latest models. But training a model is very much like raising a child. You don't raise a child by giving them an infinite rule book. You develop their character. For years, AI models were just a black box. We saw what went in, we saw and what came out, but not what happened inside. But actually, that's starting to change. Researchers recently found a way to look inside the model. We can see distinct identifiable patterns, like the digital neurons in the brain, patterns that detect ideas, patterns that detect objects. A pattern for the Golden Gate Bridge, a pattern for code that has a bug in it, patterns like for abstract things like flattery, deception. So once you can see these concepts, you can turn it up and you can turn it down. In one experiment, they amplified a single pattern, the Golden Gate Bridge. It became the Golden Gate Claude, this model. And the model became obsessed with it. If you asked it to describe itself, it would say, I am the Golden Gate Bridge. So this means that the values we care about, honesty, fairness, integrity, they're real measurable structures inside the system. For the first time, character is not only something you can train for, but it's something that you can engineer. So this insight led to something very interesting. Anthropic, the creators of Claude, published Claude's Constitution. It's an 84-page document that describes their vision for Claude's character. It's not a compliance framework or a set of rules, but rather a statement of who Claude is, what it values, and how it should reason in unpredictable situations. Very similar to another constitution built on exactly the same logic, ours. The people who drafted South Africa's constitution understood from lived experience what would happen when power operates without ethical constraints. And they understood that rules alone would never hold, that you have to build value or values into the architecture itself. A society governed only by compliance fractures the moment compliance becomes inconvenient. Our constitution was written in response to catastrophe. This one is written to prevent one. But they've arrived at the same place. Values, not rules. Character, not compliance. What Anthropic built after years of research is not a better set of controls. It's a conscience embedded in the architecture, resting on values rather than rules. So what can we take from this as leaders? AI is already changing the way we work. Some roles are going to disappear. Many others will change. But we're in a new era of possibilities. The people in your companies are feeling uncertain. They're looking to you to understand how worried they should be. What they need from you is not a confident prediction that everything will be fine, but it's the clarity and the courage to take on bold new challenges. Because the most dangerous person in any organization right now is not the AI. It's a leader making decisions about other people's future from a place of denial, fear, or ignorance. The people who matter the most, or who will matter the most in an AI-augmented world, are not the ones who can perform the most tasks. They're the ones with real domain experience, ethical judgment, and the creativity to imagine what doesn't yet exist. Our jobs as leaders is to find those people, grow them, and build the environment in which they can thrive. If you're a manager, your role is now orchestration, people and machines working together with you accountable for direction and outcomes. If you're a leader, your role is to inspire an organization of creators, not technologists, but a finance clerk, a junior nurse, an intern in HR, ordinary people in all functions, and empower them to turn their ideas into real values. Give them the tools, give them the permission, and give them the guardrails. Because ethics and accountability are not the enemies of bold thinking. They are what empowers and makes bold thinking safe enough to act on. Those guardrails won't come from a policy document. They come from you, from the values you demonstrate and from the character that you model. So as I close, the AI researchers solving the alignment problem are not doing it by writing better rules. They're doing it by building genuine character, teaching the why, not just the what, until the system understands what kind of thing it's meant to be. What they're building is a conscience for something incredibly powerful. Those are really encouraging developments. But as AI learns and echoes the humans it works with, it can drift. Therefore, the most important guardrail is the character we model. 2 years ago at this summit, Professor King said that humans are the hearts, minds, and conscience of the companies that they lead. He alluded to it again this morning. In 2026, these words carry a new weight because we're also the hearts, minds, and conscience of the AIs we employ. So I started this morning by asking, what would your agents say about you? But the question that matters more may be the reverse. When the rules run out, your agent will look to the example you've set and may ask, what would my human do? Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lionel. Really thought-provoking perspectives. I'm sure many of us will be going home this evening and typing in, who am I really, really?